Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, Art Classes My Way. I'm going to show you how to do a weave over a broad area, like for instance this guy. You can always do things like put a backbone or adding more base wires to the weave itself. But sometimes a lot of people, they want to have a nice wide expansion and make like a web going back and forth. So you get a really cool little effect that way in some cases. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and just get this to the point where it's going to start expanding across. Now, a lot of things that you're going to have to be careful when you're doing something that has a broad expanse, especially if you want it to stay a particular size and a particular distance, or whatever it is that you're wanting to do. You got to be careful that as you weave that you don't accidentally end up closing your piece. Now that's just going to take practice and working hard at what it is that you're doing. I do recommend, and trust me, it's hard. I understand it's hard because I like to weave very, very tightly. This is a great way to practice trying to weave a little looser. And I know it's difficult, so it's a great way to kind of practice that. So I'm going to start off showing you the wrong way to go about trying to cover an area like this, because it just seems so very natural to just go ahead and, want to figure eight it. Now, it doesn't look too bad in the beginning. You go ahead and you push the wire down, and actually it works out fairly nicely for very short distances or even very small gaps, which at that point you're pretty much just weaving wires beside themselves. When they're right next to each other. It doesn't do a whole lot of good that way. So it's not really expanding a gap. But you can see that looks really, really nice. It's a good look. The problem is with this is once you start getting a little further and a little further with it. And I'll show you what I mean. You just need to get some distance. The more and more distance you start getting in there, the more and more it starts to misbehave. I'm sure there are people out there who probably do this on a regular basis and can make it work. It's just something that you probably need to master. And it still looks fairly good, but well, there's a little bit of a strange gap, so you start arranging things, and now these two guys stick out further than the rest of the weave on the side. And if you want to, you can see he's starting to get kind of springy. And the further and further you go, the more and more springy it ends up getting. And it looks good overall, and probably the best wire to use for it, because this is 16 gauge, my base wire here. That's predominantly what I use for my base wires. This wire here is a 24. If you're wanting to really get away with this, I would say probably the best bet's going to be a 30 or under as far as your gauge goes. But you can see he's starting to become a little cattywampus, and even though I'm doing the exact same thing, I'm trying to tighten it around here. You don't want anything that's going around your base wire to be too terribly loose, because it's going to end up translating along the edges and you won't have your nice clean smooth edges or uniform edges. You want to be very, very meticulous on that. And we can see it's starting to not want to behave. It's starting to want to rotate. It's wanting to put space, and the spacing in between these wires is starting to get not as beautiful as it was. So that's something to keep in mind. I consider this kind of the wrong way about going and trying to cover an expansive area like this. And again, perhaps doing this in 30 gauge wire is a lot better, but this is definitely not a way you want to do it. I'll show you now, as soon as I undo all this. Now, how I typically want to do it whenever I'm trying to cover an area, you don't necessarily have to use the weave I'm doing. The important thing is that whatever it is that you're planning to do, you at least wrap it once around the base wire, and then you cross the area. Now, if you wanted to go figure 8 and do like this, and then wrap it entirely around the wire. Come up, figure 8 it, and wrap it around your base wire. Come up, figure 8, which basically, like crisscrossing, and wrap it completely around your base wire. Come up again, go across, and then you get the exact same look, but this way it's going to stay much more uniform all the way to the end. And it really, where the key is just lying in wrapping the wire completely around your base wire first, then continuing on. So I'll go ahead and just do a little bit more of this, and it's just going around one, and then crisscross, go around one, up, crisscross. Now, you got to be careful when you've done the crisscross and you're going around the base wire one time that you're not pulling it too much, because again, you're going to start narrowing and narrowing and narrowing. You want it to have a certain amount of distance in between, and that's when it's going to happen, is the tightening right then. So I've gone around, over, and that's why I have my thumb here with my fingernail, and I'm just basically pushing this wire where I want it to be, where it's wrapped around. It's not wrapped around super tight. Tighten that one a little bit more if I want to, and then just pushing it down into place, go around, push down into place, go across and around, and just trying to basically control the wire on a smaller scale in order to not tighten it too much, and I can still keep the distance that I'm wanting. Definitely a great way to practice trying to weave a little bit looser, because you got to be mindful of it the entire time you're doing this, this distance. And around, and there you go. And see how much more uniform that is. We don't have any gaps, we don't have any spaces, and we can, if we do see gaps and spaces, we can push this downwards, and you see it's not springing back up like the other way was. So that's one way to go about covering an expansion. Now the other way, just undo. Whee! We're back. So the weave that I was doing is the exact same weave I'm going to do throughout this whole piece. Now this is for this finger, so basically I'm wanting it to be about like there. It needs to be about that wide. A little wider, because I do need a ring to go and be the mantelpiece, so I'm going to just narrow it just a little bit. And it's always a good idea to even start off maybe a little wider than you need, just in case you even shrink it just a tiny bit, so that way it's still the right size that you want. So for this weave, I've gone around the base wire completely once, but instead of going in between, I'm just going to span the distance. Wrap it around once, and go underneath, wrap around one time, go over the top, wrap around one time, go underneath, wrap around one time, go over the top, wrap around one time, and so on and so on. And there you go. As you can see, that is also covering our expansion. It is filling in all of our in-between areas, and everything feels nice and neat and orderly. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope this helps you guys out. Please leave me comments in the comments section. Any questions you have or any ideas for projects that you would like to see me do to help you out. That's what I'm here for. Also, I do have a Patreon if you would like to donate, but I would rather you go to my Etsy and find something there that you like, because then I feel like you're getting something for your money a little bit more, even though I am giving you lessons. I don't know why. That feels more, it feels better to me than, just, hey, give me money. So I do hope this helped you guys out. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Have a great one. Bye.